Good morning. I'm Steve Wright. I'm the statewide director for the ICT sector team of the Workforce and Economic Development Department of the California Community College System. And these webinars are brought to you by our entire sector team and produced by Nicole Sherman. And our guest speakers all volunteer their time for the sake of our student success and our system. Our ICT sector webinar library now includes, what is the number? 55 relevant and helpful webinars for our faculty and students. Many of you like the fact that we edit the video, put timestamps on the things, to provide a complete transcript, all the presentation slides and other relevant links. And prior surveys has shown a lot of utilization in the classroom. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have Microsoft K through 14 portals for faculty and students. There's just a whole lot of stuff that they provide. And if you want a little trip through it to see what you can use, that's going to be that session. We're going to follow up the following week with our NetLab user group update. And we'll have a visit or discussions about VMware and Palo Alto networks. And then we have our credit for prior learning session lined up with Chancellor's Office staff to talk about how that gets implemented. So that's something we all want to learn about. Today, we've got Dan Leaskar, founder of EON Reality, and Rick Faree. Visiting with Dan and EON Reality, we started looking at it at the beginning of the pandemic, and now that the pandemic's moving along, people are having an accelerated acceptance of using things like AR and VR. And well, we use Zoom. It's not the same thing at all, but are you tired of Zoom yet? There's other options. And the global utilization of EON's technology is well established. But here in California, in the founder's backyard, we could be missing a great opportunity. So Dan's going to speak today about the technology and a wonderful grant opportunity that he's got coming up. And at the end of today's presentation, or towards the end, we're going to do a little survey to see who might be interested in pursuing further discussions on the utilization of this grant opportunity or EON's equipment and or technology. And I'll be hosting those in the future to see if we can put together some fundable opportunities. Right now, I'd like to turn it over to Dan and Rick to go ahead and share with us about EON and the opportunities ahead. Take her away, Dan.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Lovely Friday afternoon for you all. So I'll start a little bit unusual today. I'll start with a graph. So I've been in this industry of 3D for around 36 years and 22 years with our company. And I must admit that many times along this road, I was kind of throwing in the towel with virtual reality. At least, I don't know if you know, but virtual reality has had false starts at least 5-10 times during the last 22 years. And sometimes along the way, I thought this will never happen. But as late as 3 years ago, it was still a challenge, although Facebook and Microsoft and all our partners are putting billions of dollars into this industry. Little did I know that something as bad as a pandemic will do the job. And if you look at the screen, you see that just last year, we had an 800% increase in users and 664,000 licenses sold. And it is to 90% due to the pandemic. It is the fact that people realize in community colleges and college institutions around the world that Zoom alone will not help a nurse to learn how to use a ventilator, nor a mechanical engineering, how to an electrician or anyone to do the experiential learning, while this type of technology can do the job. And it's been a blessing in one way, although it's been a terrible year last year. Everybody is happy, I would say. Even I am a little bit like a kid in the candy store, but except my wife, I would say she's not happy because this is my schedule, folks. It doesn't look pretty. In fact, you are my longest meeting I've had this week. They tend to be 15 minutes and they cross across the world. And just in the last month, we got all these places on the map where we set up centers. So the XR is taking speed, and it's embraced now globally. It's not only EON, there's other partners of ours that do a lot of work, good work in this sector. And it all aims at helping students to learn faster, retain information longer, make better decisions. That's what we're aiming at. Now, let me talk a little bit what we're going to talk about today. And I'll try to be brief. I'm not going to use all my time. I want to leave enough room to ask questions from you and to have a vibrant dialogue. Okay, so fasten your seatbelts. It's going to go pretty fast. I have on my left, right side, a presentation that will share with you about our centers that we have around the globe, what they entail, why EON invests, and how you can participate. So that's the right, and that will talk a little bit about the technology and its benefits. On the left side, I have a presentation that talks about the grant guarantee program. And it is a program we've secured that is offered, which can cover, subject to your application, up to 100% of the funds required, and grants between 5 million up to maximum 25 million. And there is an online application that I'll share with you. You are all eligible to this application. It literally takes about 15 minutes to apply, and you'll know the answers in 10 days. So this is not your normal application. And if you qualify for this, you'll get the answer. And by the way, there's no strings attached, no financial commitments to apply. I'll come back to it. So those are the two things that I will cover. And typically when I do this presentation, I take about 15 minutes to do both, and then I'll open up for questions. This time, I was asked to do it for 40 minutes. I'm not going to use that time. I'm going to probably use about 10 minutes for each, okay? So without further ado, let's get started. So I'll jump around in the slides, so not to worry that I'm not going to share all the slides with you. So I'm the gentleman here to the left. This is me, Dan Leoskar. I'm the chairman and CEO of EON Reality. I've been with the company since its inception 22 years ago. And we help knowledge transfer using virtual and augmented reality. We work with academia. We work also with governments and, of course, a lot of companies. And the thing I'm going to talk about today has to do with centers that we set up in many locations. And typically those centers aim at four things. One is to democratize the use of XR. We typically start around 5,000 students and 750 internships, which are covered for a period of 5 years. So there's a big online footprint. There is also some physical attributes. The physical attributes are with time shrinking because the equipment becomes faster, smaller, nimbler, and better. The second thing is development of localized content. That is a characteristic of our centers. The third is access to a global marketplace. Approximately 42 million people have downloaded our viewers so far across the world. And last but not least, our co-investment. So historically, we used to invest up to 75% in these centers, while 25% we help with grants. But with this program that I'll introduce today, we can go up to 100%. So that's kind of what this is all about. And these centers are everywhere. The one I shared with you is in Europe, but we have them in places like Singapore. Of course, we have them now in the United States, places like colleges, and I'll share quite a few of those here at home. Now, the four elements I already talked about: democratization of XR, localized content, IP creation. All the content is owned locally, global marketplace, and our co-investment. But as you well know, it's not only about technology. To make this happen, you also need to have a pedagogical approach. And we were blessed with the fact that we have educators as a part of our team and our nonprofit that have proven expertise in changing education and introducing pedagogical methodologies that makes people embrace this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Now, let's talk about problems. I'm an engineer, not an educator. I'm an engineer, but I like problems because if you find a problem, you may find a solution. So I would say there's three problems we see today, big problems. One is the nature of the learners, that are people like me with short attention span, right? Social multitasker. VR and AR is a wonderful solution, but historical, too expensive devices, not enough content. So it's kind of never took off in a big scale historically. And then, of course, the pandemic came with all the issues that I'm sure you have headaches and we keep up at night with the no ability to do hands-on activities and students that fade out after 6 minutes. And it's at core this that our platform addresses. It does a number of things. First of all, it is agnostic, so it can be used with any type of device. 4 billion people have mobile devices in their pockets today. Why not take advantage of that? So it doesn't have to be just a fancy headsets or magic leap glasses. It can be your laptop, your PC, your Mac, even your tablets that can be used for VR, for AR. It's linked with a library that currently is 1.1 million 3D assets, the world's largest library for learning in XR. And the best part is it's no code. I repeat, no code, meaning that someone that only knows PowerPoint can actually use this platform and create their own content. On the right side here, you see training, remote. This has been the blessing of how we could help organizations during the pandemic. So labs that were closed, nurses that couldn't do their practical aspects were able to do so using our remote capabilities, whether you're in a PC environment. And in this environment, every move you make, every step you take, the teachers are able to track this. We can actually track 20 million data points in 20 minutes. So this can be used for certification purposes, for assessment purposes, etc. But obviously, everything you learn and train, eventually you have to apply in real life. And the platform extends to that also, the ability to get that knowledge injection where you may have learned something, but 6 months later, you don't remember it. And that's where learning, training, and performance counts. So typically at this point, I would do a demo. In interest of your time, because I want to go to the grant guarantee, I will not do that. I will just show you a little glimpse. And what I do encourage you to do is to have one, and I'm not so good at demos in general, I should say, but what I encourage you to do is, if you're interested, is to look for us, and we will do a deep dive with you, 30 minutes dedicated, 45 minutes dedicated to the platform alone. So what you're looking at is the platform that is on the PC at the moment. Could be, we have a similar user interface if you download the app, which I encourage you to do. The app is free at the moment. There's a freemium version, so to speak. And you can either go and browse through applications that are pre-existing. There's probably $90 million worth of applications that are created, from everything from pupil examination to turbine to, and all these, by the way, you can, it's a bit like Netflix. You can click on one, and normally for customers, you have to pay for them. It's not free. But if you become a part of this grant guarantee program, everything you see here is accessible at no cost. And let me show you how it works. You just click on one of these, and then you click on this, and there you have it. It happens to be something that works on a mobile device. It's an application for cardiac ECG for nursing. Okay, so but let's say you look through this library and you don't find what you want. You want maybe something specific. Let's say it's engineering. So it takes about 30 to 45 minutes to learn how to create your own application. And it's literally, I normally say that PowerPoint is a bit more complicated. There's much more buttons. Here you just follow the instructions. So let's say, being an engineer, I put engine, right? Let me just put that. And engine. And voila, you have hundreds of engines to choose them. All of them are 3D. All of them are interactive. All of them you can actually build in a matter of 25 minutes of full lessons around with all the attributes that you need. And that's the beauty of this, because if you look at challenges with this technology in the past, there's been the fact that it takes too long time to model. And plus you need to know programs like game engines and so on, which 99% of people have no clue how to use. Now, if you want to see what you can do with it, just go on our webpage and see. Those are examples of users creating content. And as you'll see, 99% of our content is currently created by users. And every day I wake up, there's thousands of new applications. So it's we are not yet there where YouTube, I think every second they produce 700 hours of content, but we for our size, we probably noticed we had 335% increase in content creation last year. Okay, so once again, that's all you're going to see about the platform itself, but you are welcome to join any of our deep dives for more details. Okay, so let's continue. Now, how is this concretely used by colleges? So let me offer you some example. Let's start with Los Angeles. So Los Angeles City College, LACC, has engaged initially with 1,000 nurses during the pandemic last year. And by the way, they didn't have to pay a single dollar. Half of the money came from us. The other half came from the CARES grant. Another college in North America is Mohawk College. They're using it for engineering. They're using it for transportation. They're using it for aerospace. It's obvious that just an engine, as you know, costs today $42 million. We have all the engine, whether it's Pratt & Whitney, Rolls-Royce, and they're all there. We can always go all the way to national rollouts. In fact, the governor's office contacted us recently, and they have grants, I think, from whether it's the Biden administration that can help in this context. And we work with governments, local governments and international governments to help this type of bigger rollouts. Now, how does it work practically? So let's say you get the $25 million grant from us and we are ready to go. How do we practically implement that? So let me offer you an example. This is an academic institution. We went through what programs they offer. So they selected 16 programs here: mechatronics, architecture, nursing, energy engineering, transportation, pharmacy, etc. So they select all these programs. And then within those programs, what happens is that we transfer the know-how and certify all the students, not only teachers, in fact, but also faculty members. And the big surprise for us is that 95% of that content is created by, guess who? The students. They use it for their homework. They use it to communicate, be in augmented reality with friends and do peer review. They use it for the labs. In fact, and most remarkable, it exploded during the pandemic and it continues to grow. So if you look here, this rollout started in April last year. That's when the same month they closed the school. Look what happened. They jumped from 1,000 to 16,000 students, and they were able to create 4,339 new 3D assets and 1,600 lessons. If you told me that even 3 years ago, I'd say that's impossible. There's no way. That's going to take them several years to do. But that's the power of the platform, I would say. Now, what's happening around us is quite astonishing. I've been in this business for 36 years. At no point have I seen so many billions of dollars spent by our partners. So the devices are becoming cheaper, faster, better. We don't wait for that. We use currently mobile devices, but within the next 2 years, this is a true explosion. I just saw that 10,000 employees from Facebook, which is 20% of the workforce, now only focused on XR, virtual augmented reality. So Apple is doing even more in this sector. So does Microsoft. But the big deal now is I used to need to evangelize about this a few years ago, but now the evidence is out. The cat is out of the bag. PwC, for example, released a report where they studied this. They concluded that VR learners learn 4 times faster than in classroom, but more important, 4 times more focused than e-learning peers and 3.7 times more connected and engaged. So we are talking a lot during the pandemic about engagement. That's what it is. Now, the other thing, especially in what you can see, is that every dollar that you spend in virtual technical education for colleges, you get $7 back. This is not my calculation. This is in the news. Under this program, you don't have to spend the $1 to get the $7. If you get the award, you spend less than 1 cent to get the $7. So I think that's why this program has been so popular. Now, there's a lot of other, sorry for that. There's a lot of other stuff. The 5G obviously is coming more and more. And according to analysis, I would say virtual augmented reality is the second most popular application. And as you know, Elon Musk is shooting those 42,000 satellites, which makes connectivity available everywhere in the world. And to address this need, we just released version 8.3, and it's quite remarkable. The new version enables you to do a bunch of things, including the ability to be remote in different locations, have 30, 40 students, and be in augmented reality, talk with them, be physically, walk holding your mobile device like a binocular in front of you or your glasses, depending what you have, be able to talk, communicate, be inside, whether it's a medical hospital or you have an assignment to do a step-by-step procedure for a transportation company. So all that is possible. You can design your SOP just using your fingers, and it's really easy. Now, if you have the ability to have more than just your laptop or your mobile device or your tablet, such as, for example, the new $290 device from Facebook called Oculus or Magic Leap, then of course you can do so much more. For example, the teacher can record a procedure just pushing a button, like you put the record button on your video, that automatically to artificial intelligence gets tagged, and then the student does the same, and you can see how well he or she completed that task. So there's a lot of stuff here. So anyway, keep it simple. Educational content platform, no code creation tool, cross-device experience from phone to DOM, to any type of device. Obviously, fully integrated with LMS, compatible with most learning management systems, which is a crucial component with single sign-on, etc. So there's a lot of other stuff. If you are into the very high end, this also integrates with Unity. Let's say less than 1% of our users do that. Okay, so this has taken a global perspective, and we are running this all over the world. Let me just give you an example.
Technology designed for its students to make breakthroughs in the clinical field. Mason Morrow has the story.
Augmented reality, virtual reality, the way of the future, the way of Nebraska medicine.
We believe that augmented and virtual reality are going to change the world, not only in the world of healthcare, education, but in the world of clinical care.
University of Nebraska Medical Center became just the 15th EON Reality, virtual reality.
So this was a while ago, but what we are really impressed with is the engagement aspect of this rollout. So we've seen content going from 40 assets in VR to 400,000 at Oral Roberts. We've seen online enrollment double because of the engagement, et cetera, et cetera. And this is truly a global phenomenon, expanding from China now to India, that are growing very fast and around the globe. And what I'm really pleased with is this number, increase in XR assets created. And just last month, it's hidden here, we had a 16% increase in assets in 1 month, which for me is remarkable. So it's the power of people using this. And I think 2021 is in many ways a perfect storm. Okay, I'll stop there because I got carried away and I overstayed my welcome with respect to this presentation. So let me move to the platform, and let me move to the program, the grant guarantee program, and explain what that is all about. Okay, so as I perhaps indicated, historically, EON had already provide this type of grants. So this is not anything new. The way we raise this type of grants is with Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, different Department of Energy, and many other resources. I'll skip a lot of slides here in interest of your time. This is me being at the Leader Forum. So I've had the pleasure to meet this year at the conference a lot of people that are either currently prime ministers or former politicians with good and secured quite a lot of grants. But how did we do it before, and how do we do it now? So before, we used to go in with 75%. I'll show you this example. Here we established a $28 million center. This is the website of US government, by the way, called USAID. And then we secured $3 million from United States government and the balance from an agency called Agency of Digital Development. Similar to that, just a month or two ago, we secured $6 million from the CARES grant with Mississippi, with the two largest colleges, Hines College and Mississippi College, they got $6 million from the government and $21 million from us, divided between those two colleges. So this is something we have done for many years. In places like Africa, we used UNIDO or UNESCO. In US, we use things like the CARE grant. The current administration actually is much more general than the previous one. So we see, I've never seen so much money printed in my entire life. But however, in these cases, what was happening is that whether it was Dominican Republic with Inter-American Development Fund or China, we were having no guarantees, right? We apply and sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. Now, the new thing with this program that I'm just about to share is that if you apply to this today, you will get your answer in 10 days. And if you get the approval, you get 100% guaranteed the grant. So let me explain how that works. So first of all, there's an online application, and I will share that with you afterwards. This grant is aiming at 4 things. It has to do with post-pandemic economic and academic recovery. We are not worried about the health concern so much. We hope with the vaccine we'll take care of that. XR deployment at scale. So this is not done to do a small lab. This is starting normally at 5,000 students covered for 5 years and 750 internships. Social development, this is not a hard requirement, but we like things to aim at that. Localized content creation. You are only able to apply if you are invited. And we've done a blanket agreement. So all the community colleges present at this meeting and included in the organization are eligible. This runs until the money are consumed, and I'll come back to how much it is and where they come from. The application is super simple. You have to fill in your name, the organization. There's about 8 questions. It literally takes about 15 minutes to do. And most of the questions are multiple alternative questions, okay? Some of them require up to 300 characters. Rick can help you with this. You can just click on this, and Steve also has access to everything if you need it. Now, once you apply, you will get an answer within 10 days after receipt of the electronic application. If you're recommended to be approved, you will receive a score, and you can see the score, how it's set down there, and the committee will determine the amount you receive. It's between $5 up to $25 million. And this is based on the merits of the application. Now, here's the good part. There are no financial obligation, no binding commitments, or any liabilities when you submit the application. If you get approved, you have a certificate which is valid for 2 months. And during that time, you can review carefully the offer letter, you can converse it with your board, you can do all the due diligence you need, and then you decide whether you actually approve the offer letter or not, okay? So that's how it works. There's much more details around it, but in the interest of your time, I'll not go through all of those now. Just to explain a little bit more the steps. So there's 7 steps. Step 1 is what we're doing today, which is the introduction meeting. Step 2 is for you to determine to submit the online application. As I said, nothing to lose. The worst thing that can happen is that you miss a coffee break of 15 minutes. Then the committee will determine whether you receive or not. If so, what the level is. The certificate will then come out. So you'll receive this certificate that you see to the right with your name on, and that will say the amount that you've been awarded. After that, we do warmly recommend what we call the due diligence process, and that entails, among other things, a deep dive. So the deep dive aims at, you see, this is a...
Welcome, everyone. My name is John Green, Customer Success Manager at EON Reality.
Yeah, so this is a 45-minute session that actually goes into detail exactly on the platform, what it entails, what the grant entails, so you know exactly what you're getting yourself in. Then after that, you get the offer letter. And that's the offer letter that contains all the formal, let's say, obligations from EON and obligations from you. So it's very easy. It's a 6-page document. Once you accept that, EON is obliged to deliver the center. Okay, so that's the process. Now, let me be a little bit more specific on the details, right? So let's say you get approved. Let's say you got the maximum amount, $25 million. Then once the offer letter has been received by the committee and signed, then EON is obliged to deliver the full center plus 5,000 students and 750 internships up front. And EON is also obliged as a part of this to guarantee 100% of the center funding. 78% comes from EON Reality, which is a for-profit company, and 22% comes from a non-profit donation, which is coming from Learn for Life. Learn for Life has been around for 15 years. Originally, we got the funds for Africa. I used to run this nonprofit, not any longer. It's run by Professor Anderson. And the way they get money is from everything from Kellogg's Foundation to UNESCO to the likes. Historically, this was more for developing countries, so Central America, Myanmar, Africa, but the pandemic changed everything. So now suddenly we got money and this for post-pandemic recovery. Now, I don't think this is gonna last long. As I said, in 36 years, I never had seen anything like this. So, but it's there and we benefit from it. Now, what's your exposure financially? You have no cost attached with this. The only cost, one-time cost that you'll have is 1% of the grant that you receive. And that's called the grant guarantee fee. So if you get the maximum 25 million, that's 250,000. If you get, let's say 5 million, that's 50,000. And that is not to cover any equipment because that's covered already. It's to ensure that you actually are motivated to do what you said in the application you will do. There's no clawback. So EON has no possibility, if you don't respect what you promised in the application, to take it back as you can do with other grants. So, but instead this 1% is at least giving us some form of reassurance that you are motivated to do it. Now, we don't stop there. As soon as this grant is approved, we also have a second grant, which is a 6.7 million grant, and that is to expansion. That also includes $1.3 million in cash for expanding the program. And there is a whole 30-page description on this that I'm happy to go through. Now, at this point, I'm sure you will have tons of questions. So there's also a document here called Frequently Asked Questions, which is a basically compiling of more than 31 pages of questions that predecessors to you in US colleges that have joined this program have asked, whether it's about the equipment or the space or the implementation plan or the platform, et cetera, et cetera. And if you get the grant, I recommend, of course, as a part of the due diligence that you do this, you go through those documents before you sign the final offer letter. Now, last point, it's obviously not only about software and equipment, you also have to implement this, meaning you have to have pedagogical, technical experts that transfer the knowledge, certifies the students, etc. All that cost is also covered, 100%, okay, for a period of 5 years. And the reason for this, you may wonder, why is EON doing all this? What's in it for us? Now, the nonprofit is easy because they get money from donors and they have to basically disperse them and they keep a small administration fee. The for-profit, the one I'm running, obviously is interested. I have a personal interest in California to make sure that we get this technology, but also a commercial interest, because what we see is as soon as we have this beacon of light in each region that provides hard evidence and the value and the success, it's very easy to duplicate this. We call it the pickle effect. It's always in a jar. The first pickle is difficult to pick. And obviously the other academic institution will pay the full price. Last point before I open up for questions. What is it you get out of this in a nutshell? Obviously, you get the technology that helps your students to learn faster, retain knowledge longer, and make better decisions. You don't have to trust my word for it, just read the statistics. You get, of course, a possibility, although most academic institutions are not interested, to monetize the content because you own the IP and you can put it on the marketplace. You also have the capability to have increased student enrollment, retention, satisfaction, engagement. I think that's a very important thing in this time, especially post-pandemic. And you have the potential cash contribution of additionally $1.3 million if we get the proof for the second grant. So that's it. With that, I'll stop. There's a lot of things that happens once you sign this offer letter. The number one being the delivery, the kickoff, the pedagogical implementation, the additional grant, and eventually if we do everything right, also nice announcement where we can cut the golden ribbon together or red ribbon together. Thank you for that. I'll stop there and open up any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Dan. Maybe if you stop screen sharing, we could see everybody's face here. There we go. That's great. Well, I've been impressed. And the reason I wanted to bring this up again, because we covered the technology before, but your offer is very generous. And I've been working with the California Community Colleges now for about 8 years. And I know that sometimes getting things to lift off can be a challenge. It's either done individually by a college, sometimes a district gets involved, but to do things statewide and to aggregate the demand, I mean, we're talking about 5,000 students, 5 years. Some of these criteria you put out there might work better if we did a more collaborative approach. So my first question to you, Dan, is how do you feel about the idea of a like an XR consortium of different colleges that collaborate on a single grant?
No, that's very much possible. You know, we are open, and in fact, it's not myself. I'm positive to it, but our committee consists of external board members. Keep in mind the purpose, right? The target is to reach and to democratize XR. And if that's possible, I mean, if several colleges can go together and they can agree to apply jointly, I think the more the merrier. I think that will achieve the target with the grant.
Okay. Let's see what kind of questions we have. I can see, can high schools apply?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we have a lot of high schools and a lot of success with K-12. And I didn't share that with you, but if we have time, I can share you. A lot of the content created is for high schools and adapted for that.
There's one question here. What equipment is required? Would the college or the location where this is I mean, what kind of investment will they need to make in either space? I mean, obviously a place for people to gather. Is this a virtual arrangement or does it usually need a physical place?
That's a very good question. One of the standard questions frequently asked. So historically, if we met 5 years ago, I would say this has to be a dedicated space, dedicated equipment, not so any longer. In fact, today, most success, the reason we had this huge increase is the space is co-located, meaning that this is distributed to each department. It's not like you go to the library. In fact, every student has it downloaded to their mobile device. They have it on their laptops. They have it on their PC. It's like having PowerPoint, right? You don't go to the library to run PowerPoint. And 95% today are using their normal devices that they already have. So they don't have to invest. The beauty of this is that it's really available, accessible, and affordable without extra equipment. Now, if you want to have, let's say, if you have a headset or you want to acquire one, the system that we provide comes with 300 VR headsets, Humido, comes with scanners, etc. So then you can have a little bit better experience. But I would discourage you to make huge investments in hardware because I know what's coming down the pipe. In 2 years, the devices, to give you an example, Oculus Quest cost about $600 a year ago. Now it's $299. It's twice as good. So it will take us another 2 years until the price settles on the low side. So use what you have for now.
All right. I think I still want to clarify about the investment side. So if a program is rolled out through a college and it implies that a VR headset would be a good thing, is that covered by the grant or is that something the college would need to fund?
Yeah, so there is the package. In the package, there's an equipment list, which we're happy to share with you. And that contains, that envision that the vast majority of the usage of the licenses will be based on pre-existing hardware that exists, whether it's in a computer lab or wherever, what have you. But there is also some hardware that we think is required. For example, 360 camera is included. Scanning equipment is included, projectors included, 300 headsets are included. And there's some demonstration units for example, Quest and Apple, etc. But it's a combination of pre-existing solutions. So the center itself is turnkey. You don't need to buy a single piece of hardware to make sure that the center works as such.
Now, the people who staff or teach or whatever, and none of those salaries are covered. That's an existing cost or something that be expected by the person who applies for the grant or the entity that applies for the grant. Is that correct?
Yeah, historically, yes, but keep in mind that EON does covers 100% of the cost for all knowledge transfer certification of teachers and students. And oftentimes, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oftentimes, and this is a discussion that you'll have between our chief learning officer and yourselves, but a lot of the colleges opt for what we call the 9-step implementation plan, which is to identify the programs that will be applying this, to identify the students, to register all students, EON to host workshops for the students, for the faculty to certify every single one of them. And then the students, as a part of doing their homework, when I went to school, I went to the lectures or the classes, and then I had to go to the labs, chemistry, biology, what have you. In this case, the students actually are using the platform to create lesson and learn by doing. It's based on the Confucius principle. I don't know if you heard about that saying, is I hear, I forget. I see, I remember. I do, I understand. So the way I learned about engines, I'm a rocket engineer, is by having my grandfather's Volvo and getting my fingers dirty and taking it apart and putting it together. That's what you do in virtual augmented reality. And students do that more so than having a dedicated, so there's no dedicated VR teachers. There's biology, there's mechanical engineering, and as a part of what they do, as well as there's no PowerPoint teacher, right? I mean, most teachers know how to use PowerPoint today. So that's the big conversion. But if you go back 5 years ago, this question that you posed was very relevant because you needed bespoke and special people dedicated to do this because it was so complicated to create the content.
Now, you've focused most of your comments about the technology on the advantages for student learning, but you've also made reference to the fact that this is just a better way than PowerPoint or Zoom for people to communicate, interact in the workplace after the initial learning. And that brings up the question, do you foresee jobs for students that are trained in EON Reality and how to make these systems and that sort of thing? And if so, have you got any idea what those might be called or what department that might be in? Or
Yes, that's a very good question. So we have for many years, and I think for more than a decade, run something we call the VR Innovation Academy. And what that is, let me just share that with you just a second. That is where we take a subset of the students, and this is not all the students, and teach them to become experts in virtual augmented reality. And that requires much more knowledge than just a basic platform because they need to do coding and so on. And there is a high pickup in this type of expertise, right? So those students, we spend much longer time and then they can become experts. And there is a huge demand and very good salaries waiting on the other end. I'll be honest though, given the development and the technology has become much more simple, much easier to use, I see the bigger impact we can do is to help fast track students by using the technology in the new jobs of the future, whether it's rocket engineering or nursing or what have you. So there is an element of using this to create experts in VR, but those will be probably 1 to 5% of the total student population we can impact.
Well, that's good to know, and I'm glad you clarified that. Now, at this time, I think it'd be a good time for us to run the survey that we talked about earlier, and we can continue to talk and answer questions while the survey is running. Nicole, could you launch that? Okay. As you can see, the questions, are you interested? And there's two parts to that question. Do you like it as a help you with your teaching, or do you want to teach how to do XR? And either answer is fine. Okay. Would you like to participate in an XR user group for faculty? Now, I called it an XR user group when I designed this question because I think that, some of us just want to make sure we understand what we're doing. Okay. And the last one is, would you be interested in collaborating on an XR application grant? And I believe this poll will capture your email addresses so that I can reach out to you, because my next step would be to talk with Dan and Rick and see about getting the next step. Some of you may want to just jump in on your own, do what he says, fill out the application and do it. Some of you may want to work with your regional consortia and come up with a package deal. What I foresee here is a typical need in the community college system is to create some kind of best practices or some sharing on a statewide basis. And I usually have a ability to play a pretty helpful role in that. And so I can see the advantages of putting together a statewide XR consortium of some type for one or multiple grants. So I will be following up with anybody who's interested in collaborating on an XR grant. Looks like we've got some pretty interested people out there, Dan.
Oh, wow. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
94% want to participate. And, you know, when you got high numbers like this, and of course, we're recording this webinar, it'll be referred out and other people will pile on. So I think our initial 30 participants, key people, decision makers, influencers that we have here on this call will precipitate many others. That's why I want to do the follow-up work. Okay, great. Great results. Are we ready to share now, Nicole?
I shared them. Everybody saw.
Okay.
It worked right. We have a few more questions in the chat, though.
Okay, what do we got here?
We have 10 minutes, so we have time.
What would be the qualification for a high school, and could that also be a consortium, or what would be the funding amount for a single high school?
That's a good question. You know, the easiest way to answer is it depends. The way the committee looks at this is based on the application. So if you go into the online application, which you have a copy, you will then see the 8 questions. So it's not like predetermined, because they look at things like number of students, your willingness to develop content. There's about your engagement in social development, the type of topic. So it's not just one size fits it all. So based on that, they determined the size, the amount, and the score. And it's a combination of these questions. And so I'm sorry I couldn't give you a more clear answer, but assuming that you comply with a reasonably high number of students and have the other elements of democratization, it's possible. And it's also the second part of the question. It's possible to do a consortium, obviously. The same answer that the more the merrier answer that I provided previously.
I'm going to look back at some of the prior chat questions here that I might have missed. I thought I handled some of these. One is, what's the benefit of having a new center versus just using the technology in existing facilities, obviously on a college campus or whatever? And you partially had answered before that, you know, we may be moving to the point where we don't even have a center, but there may be at least a center for some of the filming and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think I heard you say repurposing existing equipment really makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And the reason you may want to still have a smaller physical center that's dedicated, and I'm talking about really small space, is not maybe 5% of digitalization is happening in the center and 95% is distributed, is that you may have a lot of visitors and you want to recruit students and you want to take them to a central location where they within 30 minutes get that aha experience, right? They create that awareness, understanding, and belief in one hit versus walking through them in the whole college and seeing it. So it's more from a, I would say, publicity or promotion or engagement perspective that makes sense to have that. We call it the XR innovation, and that's where we typically put a lot of this extra hardware so they can get, you know, in one shot, the whole width of what you can do with the technology.
Thank you. Another question has to do with one facility already has what they call a maker space with employees and student employees. Would the new grant be used to pay those salaries and the cost of student employees? I think you answered that. That doesn't really, the human cost you pay for is on the expertise side in EON that is shared.
Correct. I mean, the first one, no, not the first grant, but the second one, yes. So there's 2 grants, remember. There's a first one that you get between 5 and 25. That's under the grant guarantee program. But once that is signed, in the same instant or the week after, we start working on the $6.7 million grant. And that contains a $1.3 million component that you, of course, as long as this is specified in the application, we get that, then you can use it for salaries, for other things that you have ongoing.
Another question here is comment. A joint college collaboration would allow use of regional strong workforce funds as matching. And that's not something you could answer, Dan, but I can. I believe absolutely. That's the reason I brought this up here. I see a lot of strong workforce funds like looking for an opportunity. And when you've got a company like EON at a time like this in our technology life cycle coming to the table with this wonderful opportunity, it's kind of like, here's a wonderful way to use strong workforce funds. So
yeah, if I may just say something there, because I've been working with a lot of governors and my colleagues, me less, but and the reason I mentioned, for example, Mississippi. I mean, we created a consortium between the two largest colleges. They 15,000 students each, 30,000 in total. And that consortium went to the governor's office with our support and got the $6 million. So that was for workforce development and all this type of activity. So yes, we have evidence that this approach is working.
was that in California?
No, that was in Mississippi. So that was with the governor. So Mississippi, as you know, is a much smaller state. I mean, for them, 15,000 students is the biggest. That program encompassed 30,000 students in total.
And another question here: can you apply individually and also as part of the consortium? And I obviously yes. I mean, you can apply today. And the consortium approach or collaborative or whatever it is I'm talking about here might be a little longer in development because we want to achieve a consensus. And yes, I would encourage you to consider both pathways. So if you're eager to pull the trigger, go ahead.
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I just want to be very transparent is that I cannot guarantee that this, in fact, I know that these funds will not last forever. So, and it's a global pool. So I really like the idea about the consortium. I think this is something I'm willing to engage with you, Steve, on Monday, if possible, and to do that. At the same time, I also know the timelines here. The official deadline for this program is April 30th. That's kind of when the official timeline is. And at that point, there will be a decision depending on if there's more funds available. There may be a rolling deadline, or if the funds are being consumed and then program closes out.
Well, Dan, I'd be glad to follow up. I think we could probably outline the structure of a statewide consortium that would include community colleges and high schools. And that maybe is an umbrella organization in a way, but then it would foster other grants or applications elsewhere. I'd hate for anything to try to take over everybody else's activity, but there's a whole lot of benefit in collaborating and sharing best practices and learning and that kind of thing that does, because each college in and of itself, we may have on this call many people who are excellent champions, but then they've got to fight a whole bureaucracy on their college to get something done. And if there's safety in numbers when we work across the state.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. We're winding up here. 3 more minutes. We've done our survey. We've had lots of questions. Are there any questions that I missed that are, anybody see anything here? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up then. Dan and Rick, thank you very much. Excellent presentation, very timely. I think a lot of us, as you know, 1 year since the COVID thing hit and the technology has just come in like a tidal wave, we're beginning to sort through it a little bit. And I think XR is coming out on top. And what is that wonderful exercise bike that everybody rides? The Peloton? Their stock's going through the ceiling. Okay, I mean people are at home and that's their gym. So $3,000 for a piece of equipment, 30, 40 bucks a month for a membership. Yeah, why not? So I mean, things are changing, and this is an excellent tool for us. So thank you.
I do have a quick question about the second grant. How long do we have? How many years do we have to use it, or what's the time frame to use?
Typically, that's a 5-year grant.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
60 months. Thank you.
And what was the application link to the grant?
The application link is, we'll send you, Steve has the link. but I can share it on my screen here. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Oh, please.
Basic, because it's not publicly available, so you can find it if you just go to our website. It's eonreality.com grant-guarantee-program. So I'll put that in the chat box.
Yeah, it looks like a couple people have put it in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so that's the one.
Okay, thank you.
Those of you who fill that out, I know there's a competitive quality to anything we do here, but those of you who want to share with me what you're doing and your intention or whatever, I'll try to see how we can kind of build it into a common cause here.
Okay.
Good. All right. Well, thank you very much again. And thank you everybody for coming. It's been a very exciting presentation, wonderful opportunity for the community college system and our associated high schools.
Happy Friday, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.